All right, so I chose the article comparing the added value of blended science and literacy curricula to inquiry based science curricula into second grade classrooms. So basically, this whole research article talked about how blended learning of science and literacy is a really new concept and it's a really necessary concept because it's not something we've ever really done in a science classroom before. And I picked this because I was trying to find it for high schoolers, but I figured this also can be applied, scaled up to high schoolers as well. And we can talk a little bit later about why it can be involved in other content areas. So pretty much they talk about this growing call for scientific literacy while facing decreasing instructional time and curricular resources for teaching science in elementary classrooms. And I can tell you right now, it's not just elementary school classrooms, but whatever. And there's also just many elementary teachers feel like they aren't confident or proficient enough to be teaching science because their preparation was in early literacy. So they've got the literacy down, just not the science down. For me, it's vice versa. I've got the science down and maybe not literacy. So anyways, so that is the background of why they ran this study. And what they were really looking for was creating a program that was subject dependent and teaching the language of that specific subject, specifically science, because science is notorious for having big, scary sounding words that students struggle with. And they also went on to talk about how words are used in science compared to other content areas. So their experimental curriculum was hands-on, inquiry-oriented, and it was blended between science and literacy. And the goals were to develop good inquiry and comprehension abilities, to make explanations grounded in evidence, to engage in discourses of science, and to understand and use scientific and academic language. So, scrolling on down here a little bit more, they have some, if I can find it, so I'll just talk about it. So they give some examples of how it was used in the classroom dialogue of teacher asking a student, well, do you agree, disagree with somebody? And the student saying, I don't agree, not really. And the teachers will like, well, why don't you agree? And then explaining to the student, well, you know what, that's part of science, right, is to not agree. And, you know, sometimes that happens between scientists. So after that back and forth, the student says, well, I didn't agree because I think I would need to set up my own experiment. And in that they used some more scientific language about variables and controls and all of that. So at the end of the day, they did find some limitations of it's just, this is new research, so more research needs to be done on it, but their findings were positive overall, saying that, you know, this method really saw a positive outlook of students who were like, well, hey, like, I'm understanding these words now, so maybe I can be a scientist, right? And we're understanding how to read these words and write these words and use them. So I think this can be used in other content areas, specifically because every content area has their specialty words, right? And if you don't know how to use them in a conversation, you're probably just going to end up regurgitating them on a test. And you're not going to be very confident in using the skills behind those words, right? So I think that's a way that can be adapted into other content areas, is you can specialize and have these inquiry-based, even in math or art or music, because those are all rich in their own vocabulary, right? And as far as questions I have about this article is how to scale this up to high schoolers that are technically behind with their scientific learning, right? Because I have a lot of kids that are behind in their literacy, so that puts them behind in the content areas and all of that. So how do I scale this up without going down to elementary school and teaching my kids from elementary to high school?